Well, for me, I think the concept of having such a network and the connectivity of both the academic community to the government and to key industry players was absolutely essential for the success of this network. Doing that early and making that happen rather than letting it happen, I think is a key thing to do. Line your ducks up straight away and get that moving. That would save you a year to anybody who's starting from year zero now. But I think the array of projects and the diversity of different projects in different countries, in different universities and organisations has been key. That's created a family, a very, very strong professional family that probably will continue from the end of this network.
I think the key lessons from STFC Food Network is that if you really want your projects to have an impact, try and work with the challenge owners right from the very beginning. Don't come to them towards the end after your research. Potentially involve them in the co-designing of the project. And it's not just always about obtaining data. It's more than that. It's building trust. It's building a long-term relationships. It's building that communications with them that they feel safe to share anything with you. It's about creating a safe space for anyone, for farmers in Kenya, for SMEs in India, for startup in the UK, or for any multinational companies. It's about bringing them together and be it as a family. The major achievement for STFC Food Network is that we have now become a closely knitted family of 1,000+ members based across more than 25 countries. And we come together as a community of practice, working together for the same goal, but potentially based in different areas, whether that is Kenya, India, Thailand, UK, anywhere. But we are all working towards the same goal of building a sustainable and more resilient food systems. And to be honest, the initial investment of SFN was £1.2 million. We have now grown that into more than 22 million pounds of return on investment. That's something great to say about ourselves. We came together as a people who wanted to deliver impact, and we did that. We brought together disciplines who would have never really interacted much without us, and I'm so proud to tell this, because we have truly delivered an interdisciplinary research, and we have built an interdisciplinary community. I mean, who would have thought a space scientist working on Mars rovers would be also working with the farmers based in remote villages in India? Who would have thought an astrophysicist who is, let's say, working on comets would be also working on smelling avocados and whiskey, telling you about the quality, about the food adulteration, about the food fraud? And who would have thought a data scientist who is more into AI and machine learning would be also working for understanding the UK food safety and building a digital twin around how to make UK food safety a 21st century food systems or contribute towards a 21st century ready food system. We have made unimaginable connections. We have pushed our boundaries, both on the discipline level as well as we have worked across the borders. We have provided one platform where all the voices are heard, whether you are a farmer, whether you are a politician or policymakers, whether you are an industry running in multinational companies, or whether you are an early career researchers. We have built an inclusive and diverse community. And although the funding is going to be over in the next couple of months, we will not stop. It is just the beginning. We have created the community. We will want to pursue further research, future research with this community, coming together as a family where every member will have a role to play, and we will work together to achieve sustainable and resilient food systems all across the world.
Well, our project with the Food Network has opened up lots of follow-up projects. We've now got projects in Canada, Venice, Malaga and Barcelona, and these are, in a sense, follow-up pieces of work from the first piece of work we did with the network in Islington within London. So we've been able to enrich the work we did. We've been able to build on it for these projects, but we've been able to use the expertise and the platforms within the network to help us in securing and delivering on these follow-up projects. So we're very grateful to the Food Network in providing us both the platforms, the expertise, and obviously, just the added value of being part of a global network of researchers across different disciplines. It's really helping us in our follow-on projects. Well, for me personally, as a soil scientist, I generally usually work with just soils data. But what this project and being part of the network has been able to provide me is an insight into different types of data across different types of disciplines. So with our project, we were focusing on environmental data across climate. We were looking at air pollution, air quality, not just about the soils underneath our feet. And then we were looking at spatial data as well, and social data, and all of these different data types require different analyses and treatments. And the network has opened up the avenues to explore how to analyse those different data types so that we can integrate them together to provide a holistic recommendation about where to grow food in towns and cities across the globe.
So the STFC Food Network has been really great at connecting me as a researcher with people with a wide range of different problems within the food industry. Challenges that you don't necessarily think about in your everyday sort of research career, but they put you in a position where you need to start drawing on other people to try and help solve them. A good example is looking at algal blooms in chocolate, where as a person working with data, I had to engage with people in the space science department to do the appropriate imagery and analysis of the actual materials. So with that in mind, the Food Network's really helped me connect across the STFC, but also across a wide area of potential use cases for my research. I think the Food Network's different because it starts off with small funded projects which present specific challenges and brings pretty diverse sets of people together to try and address those challenges on a sort of smaller time frame, which really gives the value in able to assess whether there's a real gem of an idea in a project or whether it's something that can be addressed in another way. It helps filter out the really good projects, which then helps us to take researching off into a really interesting direction with STFC support and the universities involved as well with industry backing.
The SFN is different from any other projects I've ever worked on because it takes the scientific capabilities that we have at the national laboratories in the UK, which are designed for things like astronomy and particle physics and understanding materials, and applying them to how we can improve food production and make it more resilient. These are not an obvious match, but when you get down to it and look at the real challenges that there are, suddenly you realise that all the technology that we've got can be applied in completely different ways by people who have got real interest in making more resilient food production. The major achievements of the SFM, I would say, is really getting people talking to each other who've never talked to each other before. There's been a lot of technical development that's been done, but really it's been making a lot more people aware of just what's possible in terms of improving food production. And this will be taken forwards in many, many different directions.
So if you had asked me the same question a few years back, I would say, okay, food sector, I don't have an idea of what they're doing, what the challenges that they're facing. I would only know what I grab from the supermarket, and that would be the end of my knowledge. The Food Network has been tremendous help to actually identify and recognize all the efforts put by all these people, all the wider community, into actually bring onto our plate quality food. And it's been an extreme pleasure having to work with all these scientists, technicians, and actually farmers that are struggling, and they put their hard work into achieving what we have today as a complete food supply chain. Well, it gave me a wider perspective. It gave me the opportunity to socialize, discuss, and acquire knowledge and in-depth knowledge of what's going on within the food sector. And it has given me actually the opportunity to work on solving some of the problems that the sector is facing via remote sensing and earth observation activities. So I'm really appreciative of being given this chance through the network.
So being part of the STFC network has been very inspiring for me, because you have diverse people with diverse knowledge, expertise, background coming together to address food system challenges. We've got like the technology experts from the STFC, and then you've got like academic researchers, and then you've got people from the industry and policymakers all working together to solve the same problem. And when these people come together with a different knowledge, with a different background, with a different expertise, there's a huge amount of discussion that comes out of it. It just gives you a bigger picture of what the food system, just within the room, you can get a lot of inspiration on what is possible and how there are opportunities to solve the problem. So for me, I think that was one of the key things I got from being part of STFC Food Network, to be able to engage with different people, be able to explore opportunities for collaboration. Know there are so many ways and so many channels that we can take to solving the problem within the food system. And I think that's been very inspiring, very impactful for me in my journey in helping to improve the food system. So in terms of it being inclusive, I think the network actually has been very inclusive from the time I've been part of the network, and I was STFC Food Network champion, looking at knowledge exchange, and we did a lot of work trying to engage with different stakeholders. We participated in different events, conferences like COP26. We hold quarterly webinars, and in all of these, we try to engage, make sure that everyone is fully engaged in that process, whether you're coming from the policymaker side, DEFRA, FSA, they were all involved as part of the project. We do have like researchers coming from across different universities across the UK and even internationally. So that is the mix that we have, and I think that was very inclusive. And we have, I think the PI for the project in the second phase was Sonal Choudhary, so giving a female the opportunity to lead the network, following on from Bob, who was a male that led the network initially in the first phase, was showing the inclusiveness of how the network is built. And Sonal did a great job leading the network in the second phase. So I think that shows that even female could actually do a lot of work, and that's something that's very impactful. So I think it's great in terms of inclusion within the network, and even within the champions, that inclusivity also came through, having people from even international academics being involved in the champion role, and even for myself coming from the industry, being a champion in STFC Food Network. So you can see that what we do prioritize is having diverse input from different sectors within the food system in the discussion, and that has been what's been pivotal to the success that STFC Food Network has achieved over time.
I think the nice thing about the network is actually a lot of these smaller projects are kind of like the seeds for things that go on to be much bigger projects that actually do have serious impact. So they might seem quite sort of small and focused with sort of specific groups, but the whole idea is that then they lead to much bigger things. And even in our case, you know, the small food network funded project that we had was then the like precursor to a much larger project we had with NERC that was then working with farmers in Brazil, which we never really would have started if we didn't have that sort of initial seed corn project at the very start to just kind of prove it would be useful. And I think that applies to probably a lot of the projects in the network itself. I've learned a lot about farming, which is, I think, fair. And actually, the sort of difficulties that come with getting kit out in the field. I think as scientists, we generally are used to things working quite nicely in a lab, and only when you actually sort of work with people on the ground do you realise there's sort of things that you just had never thought of, the issues that you'll have to deal with in terms of, you know, how robust a sensor needs to be, or how the data will be processed, that I would not have known going in. I would say those are the kind of the biggest things that have had quite a huge impact then on how we do follow-on research projects, just, yeah, from learning directly from farmers themselves.
So from my personal perspective, the STFC Food Network is very diverse, very committed, very engaged. They have lots of ideas and things, and I have just enjoyed working with them, basically. So there has been so many different things and so many different people to work with and interact with, and they've all been lovely people, very knowledgeable, and a wide variety of expertise as well. So we sometimes need to communicate first, just to make sure that we speak the same language, because I come from a science and technology background, and then once we start talking to each other, we start exchanging ideas, and they have ideas from different domains, and they work on with a different perspective on my problems, and I have a different perspective on their problems, and then we just get together and we just get these ideas and projects going, and that's been really fantastic. I think we have had a lot of engagement also outside of the UK with countries in Africa and Asian countries, where again they have had a different perspective on things. We are so used to how things work in the UK that we sometimes don't realise that there are different ways of doing things, in different ways of doing food in other countries. We may go to a restaurant, an Indian restaurant here in the UK, but when you actually look behind the scenes of that restaurant, so how did that food get into that restaurant, then we again get a different perspective. And sometimes it's easier for us to get contacts in Indonesia, for example, who can work with the cities or with farmers than it would be for us in the UK. So again, this has given us a range of challenges, that we have had to do things in a way that also worked for the people in the other countries, but also it has made the stuff we do more useful in many ways, because we get that the extra check that somebody has said, oh yes, this works in Indonesia, oh yes, this works in Ghana, and so we know the product is useful. It's not just built for a small community in the UK.